Bones by Amy Rose. It had been a while since I had played most of my computer games. Some of them I don't even remember playing. I decided to my Steam library to see if I had any abandoned games installed. I saw that I still had Skyrim. It wasn't one of my favorites, but it was really fun to play, so I booted up the game. It froze on the loading screen for a good 30 seconds. I knew that the game was kind of nitpicky with computer specs, but I didn't expect it to take so long. All of a sudden, I was in the middle of Helgen. The town was still on fire and some corpses from the dragon attack were still there. However, the town was empty. Hadvar was nowhere to be seen. There was no dragon, and no survivors taking shelter in the houses that were still intact. The game must have accidentally loaded an old save instead. I went ahead to Helgen Keep and was making my way to the Riverwood Trader when I noticed that all of the enemy AIs were being odd. Some would sit there and stare at me, even turn their heads to face me, while others walked in place, making the occasional grunting or hissing sound. I found this quite funny, to be honest. I knew the game was glitchy, but nothing like this had happened to me. Well, I neared the cave where Hadvar, if he was still around, would tell you how to move stealthily past the bear. I made my character crouch down only to notice that the bear wasn't in its spot. As a matter of fact, something was coming out of the ground. I ran into the cave as fast as I could. It would have been bad if a high-level mob glitch spawned there, and to be quite frank, I was starting to get creeped out by the lack of any wandering mobs or followers. I was walking on the path to Riverwood when I neared the area where the 3 guardian stones were usually placed. None of the stones were there. I thought nothing of it, since I probably wasn't going to use one anyway. I headed to town. I had finally found a place where the NPCs were actually present. I went to Alvor's house to find and found him using the blacksmith wheel. When I got close, he looked up at me for a split second, then turned his head in the other direction as if he didn't want to look at me. I tried to talk to him, but the option never came up. I decided to walk around town to see if this was happening with the other NPCs. As I expected, everyone was turned away from me when I got close. Not even the wandering dog would come up to me. I decided to close the game without saving and check to see if I had downloaded any mods that might be causing these bugs. Turned out I found that I had no other mods, just the DLC that I had gotten while it was on sale. I knew I had some dragon spawning mod and a few house mods, but they did not show up on the list. I then chose to reinstall the game, hoping the auto-updater would fix the problem. After reinstalling, I reopened the game, however, instead of the launcher appearing, I was immediately in the game. No loading screens or options to choose the save file. I was in the same spot that I was before reinstalling. I checked to see that maybe the autosave option was on, and to my surprise, it wasn't. I didn't even have the option to save. I went to the load option and saw that my old save was still there. My character was at Carthwaston in the save. I selected it, but the game instantly crashed. Annoyed, I rebooted the game and was in Riverwood yet again. I decided to just go ahead and continue. I started to head towards Whiterun to see if I have had anything to do there. As I approached the town, the screen shook and I heard a screech. A dragon spawning already? I turned my gaze towards the sky, but saw nothing. After exiting first-person view, a dragon skeleton began to rise out of the ground. I knew that the skeleton of the dragon spawning was a common occurrence, but I never saw one come out of the ground. After emerging, it just flopped onto its side and nothing else happened. I collected them and went to the town gates. To my surprise, there were no guards and the gates were locked. Since I couldn't enter, I went to the fort where the first dragon was supposed to spawn in the storyline. No guards were here either. I chose to walk to where the giants lived. It'd be crazy for me to go there now, but I had no idea what I was supposed to do. Maybe respawning would fix this bug. On my way there, I heard another screech. This time I saw something approaching from my right. Finally, something to do besides wander around. I attempted to prepare myself, but noticed I had no option to go to my bag and equip a weapon. It also appeared that I could not use any magic either. The dragon came closer to me, but it did not breathe any fire. The dragon was also a skeleton. It began to fly towards me. Before I could jump out of the way, the game froze, then crashed. I minimized the error message to see that the dragon skeleton had. Many mobs and NPCs had glitched into it before the game crashed. Wanting to know what happened, I restarted the game only for the game to tell me that the file was corrupted and could not be opened. Usually I'll be sad about this, but I'm kind of glad that I won't be able to play it. I know very little about mods or stuff like this, but I do know when something like that isn't supposed to happen. Honestly, being charged by a skeleton dragon with bears, spiders, and people stuck to it was a bit unnerving. After uninstalling the game, I began to wonder, what would have happened if the game did not crash? That was Bones. Final thoughts? A bit generic. I felt like there wasn't much to this story. Enemies would just stare at the player character, the game would auto-load this glitched save, and a skeleton of a dragon covered in enemies started charging before the game crashed. It feels like there's no depth to it. Everything can just be taken at face value. There is no reason for the enemy walking on the spot or turning their heads that we are given a hint to. They just do it because it's creepy. It seems like it has no relation to the ending. Other than the game auto-loading that one save file, it just feels like a broken save. I give it points for realism. I don't think anyone would refuse to believe Skyrim being riddled with glitches, but I'm just really not feeling this story. Also, it's absolutely riddled with really big typos, and I checked the forum. The reviews pointed out these typos, the author just didn't fix them. That's it for this creepypasta. Tune in again next Saturday when we tackle yet another story made and sent by the fans with Vanished Beauty. If you want to write your own story, help a peer edit a story, or even just read the stories early, check out the description where you'll find a link to the Creepypasta section of my forum. You'll also find a link to the playlist of every creepypasta rating I've done. If you're interested in keeping up with me on my blog posts, join my Facebook fan page linked below, and if you want to support me in what I do, check out my Patreon page in the description. Remember that if you want your story to be read on the show, you must stay active on your post on the forum, as well as read the forum rules. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, sweet dreams.